My name is Emily Thompson. I grip my water glass so tightly my knuckles turn white, but I refuse to let my mother see how deeply her words just slice through me. Emily, you'll never be as good as your sister. The crystal chandelier above our dining table catches the light and scatters tiny rainbows across the crisp white tablecloth in our parents' upscale suburban Austin home. The silence that follows feels like a physical weight pressing down on the entire room. This is supposed to be a celebration dinner for my sister Madison's big promotion at her marketing firm. That's why we're all gathered around the polished mahogany table on a random Wednesday night in this quiet Texas neighborhood. I rushed here straight after a brutal 10-hour day coding at my tech company downtown, barely having time to swap my wrinkled blouse for a fresh one in the car while fighting Austin traffic. Mom, Madison starts, but our mother raises a perfectly manicured hand to cut her off. It's just the truth, sweetheart. Your sister chose stability over real ambition. Nothing wrong with that, but we have to be honest about reality. My father clears his throat and stares down at his half-eaten salmon like the plate might offer him an escape. Your mother's right, Emily. Madison's on track to make vice president before she turns 30. Different paths, that's all. I look across the table at Madison in her sharp crimson dress, her blonde hair still perfectly styled after a full day in the office. Then I glance at my mother wearing the pearl necklace I bought her last Christmas, the one she'd said was nice but not really my style, before wearing it to every single one of Madison's events. Something inside me finally snaps. 2 years of biting, my tongue rises like bile in my throat. I push my chair back, open my purse, and pull out the mortgage statement I've been carrying around for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. There is no right moment for this. I've been paying your bills for 2 years, I say, my voice low but steady as I slide the paper onto the center of the table. Including this house. My mother's eyes widen for half a second before her face settles back into its usual composed mask. She waves her hand dismissively, the same gesture she's used my entire life. That's what family does, Emily. Madison needs to focus on her career. My mind flashes back to Madison's college graduation, 6 years ago. My parents had handed her the keys to a brand new red BMW with a giant white bow on the hood. That same afternoon, they gave me a gift bag with a cheap coffee mug printed with my university logo. You're already established, Mom had explained when she saw my face. Your sister needs our support right now. Then came the first phone call 2 years ago. Dad's voice had sounded unusually hesitant as he explained a temporary financial setback. Just one mortgage payment, they said. Just until things stabilized. I touched the corner of the statement now, lying on the table. 2 years of payments isn't temporary anymore. Family supports each other. Mom says, her voice hardening. Why are you being so selfish? I reach into my bag again and pull out the thick accordion file I've been quietly organizing. Bank statements, transfer confirmations, canceled checks. 2 years of financial drain laid out in neat rows. I've supported plenty, I reply, my voice steadier than my shaking hands. But I'm not your personal AT. My father's face reddens. Your sister is at a critical point in her career. And I'm at a critical point in my patience. I cut in, surprising even myself with the steel in my tone. Madison looks between us, confusion creasing her forehead. What is happening right now? No one answers her. My mother stares at me with narrowed eyes. My father studies the ceiling like the answers are written there. I stand in my parents' elegant dining room, suddenly aware of exactly what I'm risking. These are my only family connections, the people who raised me, the sister I helped with homework and drove to every dance recital. Yet looking at their faces tonight, I see for the first time how they truly measure my worth. Not in love, memories, or shared blood, but in the dollars I can quietly provide while staying conveniently in the background. I'll be taking a break from family dinners, I say, gathering my purse and the stack of papers. My mother's face hardens into something I barely recognize. You'll regret this, Emily. Family is all we have in this world. I pause at the doorway, feeling a strange, new lightness in my chest. Then I guess I have nothing. A whole week passed after that explosive dinner. Besides a couple of rare texts from Madison, my parents didn't reach out once. Then, on Thursday afternoon, my mother called. Emily, I need your help organizing my tax paperwork. Since you're so good with numbers. It was a backhanded compliment that acknowledged my skills while still dismissing my career in software engineering. I never planned to find what I did, but as I sat at her desk sorting through the chaotic pile of documents in their home office, a familiar name jumped out at me. Mine. I froze. It wasn't my student loan statement. It was Madison's. The words blurred, then sharpened with horrifying clarity. A payment of $19,400 with a transfer confirmation that clearly showed my bank account number. My fingers trembled as I flipped through more pages. Car payments. Credit card statements. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight I could barely breathe. These weren't emergency payments. They weren't temporary help. This was systematic, planned, and expected. Footsteps sounded behind me. I turned to see my mother standing in the doorway, the pearl necklace I'd given her gleaming against her crisp white blouse. "Did you find the mortgage interest forms?" she asked casually. Then she noticed the papers in my hands. Something flickered across her face, not guilt, but annoyance at being caught. "What is this?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Dad appeared behind her, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. Madison stood farther back in the hallway, thumbs flying across her phone screen, barely paying attention. "Emily, don't make a scene," Mom said, stepping into the office. Dad followed. Both of them loomed over me as I sat in the leather desk chair. The open ledger lay between us like a confession. "You used my money to pay off Madison's student loans," I said, tapping the statement. $19,400. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You were helping the family. Madison's loans were the most pressing need. And her car payments." I held up another statement. $3,600 last year alone. "Transportation is essential for her position," Dad said, adjusting his glasses. "She meets with clients." "The credit cards," I continued, fanning out the statements. $9,200 on designer clothes and restaurants. "Professional appearance matters in marketing," Mom replied without missing a beat. I looked past them to Madison, who finally pocketed her phone with a shrug. "I didn't ask for any of this. Mom said you were happy to help." The room suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. For 2 years, I thought I was helping with a temporary hardship. All along, I'd been quietly funding Madison's lifestyle while they treated me like the reliable, boring daughter whose only purpose was to support the star. "Madison needs the freedom to build her career," Dad said, his tone suggesting I should understand this obvious fact. "You're stable. Stable like a workhorse. Reliable. Boring. The practical daughter." I pushed back from the desk, needing air. "My own student loans still aren't paid off. I've been putting every extra dollar toward yours." "That's different," Mom said. "Your career choice doesn't require the same presentation." The unspoken comparison hung heavy in the air. Software engineering versus marketing, back office versus front-facing, invisible versus celebrated. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to my financial future?" asked, my voice growing stronger. "If I keep supporting everyone, I'll never have anything for myself." Mom blinked, genuinely confused. "Family supports family, Emily. We've always taught you that." She leaned forward with a new gleam in her eye. "And Madison's wedding is coming up. Of course you'll help with that too. She deserves the perfect day." The casual assumption knocked the wind out of me. I grabbed the ledger and flipped to the last page where I'd tracked every payment. The total stared back at me in cold black ink. $61,000. 2 years of mortgage, student loans, car payments, credit cards, $61,000 spent propping up their favoritism while they treated me as the less successful daughter. I closed the ledger with trembling hands. All this time I'd been enabling their behavior by financing it. Later that afternoon, I met my colleague Brooke at our favorite cafe downtown. She was the closest thing I had to a real friend these days. We sat with coffee growing cold between us, while she examined the pages of my ledger. "This isn't normal family support, Emily," she said finally, closing the book and sliding it back to me. "This is exploitation." The word hit me like a slap. Exploitation. Not help. Not family duty. A deliberate taking advantage. As I drove home that night with copies of the ledger tucked safely in my bag, I wrestled with an impossible choice. Should I cut off financial support immediately and force them to face reality, or gradually reduce the payments to give them time to adjust? The first option might shatter every relationship beyond repair. The second meant more months of financial bleeding for me. What do you do when the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally only value what you can give them? The next Wednesday morning at work, my phone started buzzing with calls from my cousin. My family had scheduled an emergency family meeting. I had zero intention of going. I silenced the phone and flipped it face down on my desk, watching the screen light up again almost immediately. "Are you avoiding someone?" Brooke asked from her cubicle, one eyebrow raised. "My mother organized a family reunion without telling me," I said, rubbing my temples. "Now she wants me to fund it." Brooke's eyes widened. The nerve, after everything else they've taken. I nodded and opened my email. 3 new messages from aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in months. Each one contained polite variations of the same request. The family needs help, and apparently I'm the designated helper. "Did you know about the reunion?" I asked Brooke. "No, but your sister's engagement is all over social media." She turned her monitor toward me. My mother had tagged everyone except me. Madison's beaming face filled the screen, a massive diamond ring prominently displayed. The caption read, "Planning the celebration of the century for my beautiful daughter. So blessed." The first comment made my stomach tighten. Emily will help make it perfect. I'd become the family ATM, and now they were making promises in my name. That evening I curled up on my couch with a cup of tea and scrolled through Facebook. My thumb froze over a photo posted 5 weeks earlier. My parents and Madison posing in front of the Las Vegas sign, cocktails raised in celebration. The timestamp showed it was taken the same weekend I'd worked overtime to cover an emergency property tax payment for their house. They'd gone to Vegas with my money while telling me they couldn't make ends meet. In the days that followed, sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. Night after night, I lay awake running numbers in my head. How much I'd given, how much they'd asked for, how much I had left. The weight of constant financial worry pressed against my chest until breathing felt difficult. During meetings at work, I caught myself drifting, thinking about the second notice on my own student loans while Madison's were paid in full with my money. "You look exhausted," my boss commented one Thursday morning after I missed a deadline for the first time in 3 years. "I'm fine," I lied, but the dark circles under my eyes told the truth. I started keeping a journal. Every phone call, every request, every dollar transferred. The small leather-bound book became my constant companion. Page after page, I documented the pattern of manipulation that had shaped our family for years. The casual mentions of Madison's accomplishments followed by money requests, the guilt trips when I hesitated, the celebration dinners I paid for but was barely acknowledged at. The evidence built an undeniable record of systematic exploitation. One Tuesday evening, as I was leaving the office, a familiar voice stopped me. "Emily." Uncle Robert stood by the elevator, his weathered face lined with concern. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised. "Looking for you," he said simply. "You've missed the last 3 family gatherings. That's not like you." I looked down, unsure how to explain. "I always thought you were the backbone of this family," he continued gently. "Now I'm wondering if they've been taking advantage of that strength." His words hit harder than I expected. I blinked back sudden tears. The following Saturday, I found myself back in my parents' kitchen. Madison sat at the counter flipping through bridal magazines while my mother circled venue options in red pen. "The country club deposit is due next week," Mom said without looking up. "Madison deserves the perfect celebration. You can cover the venue deposit." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Something inside me snapped, a clean, decisive break. "I'm not paying another cent," I said, my voice steady. The room went dead silent. Madison's head jerked up from her magazine. My mother froze, pen hovering midair. "Don't be ridiculous," Mom finally said, but uncertainty flickered across her face for the first time. "I'm serious," I continued, finding unexpected power in the calm of my own voice. "I've paid the mortgage, Madison's loans, credit cards, car payments. I'm done. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish searching for the manipulative words that had always worked before. But for the first time, I saw her tactics clearly. The guilt, the comparisons, the subtle insults wrapped in maternal concern. I'd been financing my own mistreatment. You can't just, she began. I can, I interrupted. And I am. The next day, Brooke spread spreadsheets across her dining table, calculator in hand. Without supporting them, she said, circling a number, you could pay off your own student loans in 3 years instead of 15. The figure stared back at me, a future I hadn't dared to imagine. Uncle Robert called that evening. I spoke with your mother. She's not happy. I know. Good, he replied firmly. Sometimes family needs to learn hard lessons. I'm proud of you for setting boundaries. That night, I opened my laptop and started searching for job opportunities outside Austin. Seattle kept coming up, tech jobs with significantly higher salaries and a fresh start almost 3,000 miles away. I allowed myself to imagine a life built around my own needs and dreams instead of my family's endless demands. The next morning, I drove to the bank and requested printouts of every transaction for the past 2 years. The clerk raised an eyebrow at the volume, but complied. Hours later, I organized the stack chronologically, highlighting each payment to my parents. Tucked among my father's financial documents, I discovered a statement for a hidden account I'd never seen before, an account with a healthy balance that completely contradicted every claim of hardship he'd made. He'd been hiding money while I drained my savings to support them. My phone rang just as the realization hit. Mom's name flashed on the screen. We're having an emergency family responsibility meeting tomorrow, she announced without greeting. The mortgage payment didn't arrive. I know, I said, feeling calmer than I had in years. I told you I'm done paying. This isn't a game, Emily. Be here at 6, she snapped. I hung up and looked at the mountain of evidence spread across my table. Proof of years of manipulation and exploitation. For the first time, I held all the cards. I'll be there, I whispered to myself. On Tuesday evening after work, I arrived 15 minutes early for the family meeting. I parked my Toyota 2 houses down from my parents' colonial-style home. The heavy 3-inch black binder on my passenger seat represented 2 years of financial drainage, meticulously organized by category and date. Uncle Robert's advice from that morning echoed in my head. Don't let them control the narrative. The familiar smell of lemon furniture polish hit me as I entered without knocking. In the dining room, my parents sat at opposite ends of the mahogany table like monarchs awaiting a subject. Madison perched uncomfortably between them, scrolling through her phone. You're early, Mom said, surprise flashing across her face before she composed herself. I placed the binder in the center of the table with a soft thud that drew every eye. I wanted to make sure we had enough time. Time for what exactly? Dad asked, shifting in his chair. I opened the binder to the first tab labeled Mortgage. The pages contained highlighted bank statements, transfer confirmations, and a running total. Time to go through everything I've paid for over the past 2 years, I said, my voice controlled and businesslike. Let's start with the mortgage. 24 payments at $1,200 each. That's $28,800. Mom's eyebrows shot up. That can't possibly be right. I flipped to the next section. Student loans, Madison's, not mine, $19,400. Dad's face paled. His fingers drummed nervously against the polished wood. Car payments for Madison's BMW, $3, $600. I turned another page. And credit card bills, mostly designer clothes, restaurants, and work trips, $9, $200. Madison's phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the table. That's more than I make in 3 months. The grand total, I said, turning to the summary page with the figure highlighted in yellow, is $61,000. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. You're exaggerating. Half those payments were gifts. You offered to help. I have proof for every single dollar. I pulled out a thick manila folder containing copies of every check and transfer receipt. The stack landed beside the binder with a satisfying thud. Would you like to go through them one by one? This is ridiculous, Dad muttered, but his eyes refused to meet mine. Madison reached for the folder with trembling fingers. Her usual confidence evaporated as she stopped at a credit card statement showing charges for her interview suits. "I had no idea," she whispered. "Mom said you were happy to help, that you wanted to contribute because you had extra money with your tech salary." Extra money? My laugh came out harsher than I intended. I still have my own student loans. I've been putting off dental work because I couldn't afford it. There was never any extra money. Madison looked up at me, confusion clouding her eyes. "Why didn't you ever tell me how much you were contributing?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. "Perfect timing," I said. "That would be Uncle Robert." I asked him to join us. Dad's head snapped up. "Why would you?" Uncle Robert's voice boomed from the entryway as he let himself in. "Hello, everyone. Hope I'm not late." My mother's face tightened as her brother settled into the chair beside me. He nodded toward the binder. "I see Emily is showing you the numbers." "You knew about this?" Mom asked, betrayal thick in her voice. "I suspected," Uncle Robert said, his normally jovial tone serious. "Family helps each other in emergencies, not as a permanent arrangement. What you've been doing to Emily isn't right, Elaine." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush us all. My mother stared at her brother, then at me, realizing her carefully constructed narrative was crumbling. I was no longer isolated. Madison broke the quiet. "My friend Jenna asked me yesterday why Emily never comes to family events anymore. She seemed concerned, like she knew something was wrong." "Your friends don't understand our family dynamics," Mom said dismissively, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "The Hendersons called last week," Uncle Robert added. "They wanted to know if there was any truth to the rumors that you two were having money troubles while spending on luxury items." Dad's face flushed red. "That's none of their business." The dining room fell silent again until Madison's phone pinged. She glanced at it, eyes widening. "It's from the mortgage company. They're sending a late notice." In that moment, watching my father's shoulders slump and my mother's mask slip, I saw the first real cracks in their facade. The financial house of cards they'd built was starting to collapse. And for the first time, I wasn't rushing to prop it up. 2 days later, I sat across from my parents at their kitchen table. The space felt different now, smaller, less intimidating. My father's smile looked strained as he slid a paper toward me. "Emily, we've been thinking. We understand your concerns about the financial arrangements." He cleared his throat. "Families should acknowledge each other's contributions. We haven't done that enough with you." The script sounded rehearsed. I watched their performance with new clarity, the nervous drumming of Dad's fingers, the way Mom kept glancing at the stack of past due notices she was trying to hide. "We have a compromise," Mom continued. "If you resume the mortgage payments, we'll make sure everyone knows how much you help. Madison, too." Dad leaned forward. "Think about what you're risking, Emily. Family relationships can't be repaired once they break. Is that what you want?" Their words hung in the air, a final attempt to reclaim control. 2 months ago, I might have folded. 2 weeks ago, I might have negotiated. Today, I simply opened my laptop. "I've accepted a new position," I said, turning the screen toward them. "Software architect at Meridian Tech in Seattle. I start next month." The color drained from my mother's face. "Seattle? That's across the country." "The salary is $135,000. I continued, pulling up the spreadsheet I'd prepared. "That's $33,000 more than I make now. Without supporting this household, I'll be able to save approximately $3,200 every month." "You can't just leave," Mom said, lips pressed thin. "I've been paying for the privilege of being disrespected," I replied, voice steady. "That arrangement is over." Dad reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "Emily, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable, for the first time in years." My phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Robert. "Everyone's here. Ready when you are." "I need to go," I said, closing my laptop. "Madison's dinner starts in 30 minutes. My parents followed me, confusion written across their faces. "What is this about?" Mom whispered harshly. I didn't answer. The restaurant buzzed with conversation as I entered the private room Uncle Robert had reserved. Madison sat at the head of the table in a cream-colored dress, surrounded by aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't seen in months. My parents trailed behind me, looking lost. I made my way to Madison. Her smile faltered when she saw my expression. "Emily, what's going on?" I placed a wrapped gift box in front of her. The silver paper caught the light from the chandelier overhead. "I wanted to show something to all of you," I said loudly enough for the room to quiet. "Open it." Madison hesitated, then carefully removed the wrapping. Inside was a leather-bound portfolio containing every financial record, receipt, and bank statement from the past 2 years. "Here's my gift to you," I said quietly. "The truth about who's been supporting you." Madison flipped through the pages. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock. "It's all there," I continued. $61,000 over 2 years. She looked up at our parents standing frozen near the doorway, eyes filling with tears. "How could you?" "Madison, this isn't the place," Mom started. "No," Madison snapped, holding up one of the pages. "We need to address this right now." Uncle Robert stood. "Your sister has been carrying this entire family while being treated like she's less successful than you." Aunt Patricia gasped. "Elaine, is this true?" Murmurs spread through the room like wildfire. My mother's face flushed with anger. My father stared at the floor. Madison pushed back from the table and walked over to me, still clutching the portfolio. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I never knew you cared so much for me." A tear slid down her cheek. "From now on, live for yourself." The room watched in stunned silence as Madison turned and confronted our parents, demanding the answers I'd been seeking for years. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of resentment and obligation finally beginning to unravel. Later that week I heard through Uncle Robert that my parents were considering selling their house. Without my monthly contributions, they couldn't afford the mortgage. Part of me wondered whether any real relationship with them could ever be salvaged, or if I even wanted to try. I taped shut another moving box in my apartment and labeled it kitchen with a black marker. Seattle waited with a new job, a new home, and a new start. As I wrapped glasses in newspaper, I found an old photo album I'd tucked away years earlier. Opening it revealed faded pictures of family vacations, holiday gatherings, and birthday celebrations, smiling faces that now felt like strangers. I closed the album and placed it in a box labeled undecided. 6 months later, morning light streamed through the windows of my new Seattle apartment, painting the small dining table in warm gold. I stared at the notification from my student loan app. Balance reduced by another $2,400 this month. No more mortgage payments for my parents. No more credit card bailouts for Madison. Just my own hard-earned financial freedom, one payment at a time. My laptop chimed with an incoming video call. Brooke's familiar face filled the screen, her Atlanta kitchen visible behind her. "Look at you. Seattle suits you," she said, sipping coffee from an oversized mug. "You seem different." I straightened my shoulders. "I closed 2 major projects this quarter. My team lead says I'm on track for promotion by December." "And no one taking credit for your work this time," Brooke noted with a grin. I laughed, a real laugh that started deep in my belly and rose without restraint. It's strange not having to downplay my success to avoid making someone else feel bad. "What about that hiking group you mentioned?" she asked. "We're planning a weekend trip to Mount Rainier next month." I hesitated, then smiled. "And I've been seeing someone. Nothing serious yet, but I'm allowing the possibility." Brooke's smile widened. "That's the real victory." Later that evening, I slipped into a sage green dress for my company's quarterly dinner. As I adjusted my simple gold necklace, I studied my reflection, shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes clear. The woman who left Austin 6 months ago would have hunched slightly, trying to make herself smaller. Not anymore. The banquet room buzzed with conversation when I arrived. My department head waved me over to a table near the front. "There she is," he announced to the group. Emily's client satisfaction scores were the highest in the company this quarter. The Reynolds account specifically requested her for the next phase. I smiled genuinely, soaking in the recognition that felt earned and untainted. For the first time in years, my achievements belonged solely to me. No comparisons to Madison. No hidden financial burdens. Just pure professional growth in the rainy, vibrant streets of Seattle. Back in my apartment that night, I opened the box labeled Undecided and pulled out the old photo album again. Flipping through the pages, I saw the family I once knew, not the version that had used me, but the one from simpler times. A part of me still ached for what could have been, but another part felt liberated. I had chosen myself, and that choice was paying dividends in peace, savings, and self-respect. A text from Madison popped up. "Hey, I've been thinking a lot. Can we talk sometime? No money stuff, I promise. Just us." I stared at the message for a long moment before replying with a simple, maybe soon. Boundaries were still necessary, but maybe, just maybe, some bridges could be rebuilt on new terms. Life in Seattle wasn't perfect. The rain was relentless, the cost of living high, but the freedom was priceless. I hiked on weekends, dated casually, and poured my energy into code that actually mattered. My new team valued my input without reservation. For the first time, I felt seen, not as the reliable sister or the family bank, but as Emily Thompson, talented software architect with a future wide open. Sometimes the biggest favor someone can do is underestimate you. It forces you to truly value yourself and build a life on your own terms. Standing on the balcony of my Seattle apartment overlooking the glittering city lights and distant mountains, I realized how far I had come in just 1 year. The woman who once gripped a water glass until her knuckles turned white had transformed into someone strong, independent, and unapologetically ambitious. My parents eventually sold the Austin house and downsized. Madison took a hard look at her own path and started contributing more to her life, though our relationship remains cautious and rebuilt slowly through occasional calls. Uncle Robert became a steady voice of support, reminding me that healthy family ties require mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. I paid off my student loans ahead of schedule. I got that promotion and another after it. I even started mentoring younger women in tech, sharing my story of breaking free from financial and emotional exploitation so they wouldn't repeat my mistakes. On a crisp fall evening, as rain pattered against the windows, I hosted a small dinner party with Brooke visiting from Atlanta, my new boyfriend, and a few close colleagues. Laughter filled the room, genuine and light. No hidden ledgers, no guilt trips, just good food, real connections, and the peace of knowing I had chosen my worth. Looking back, that painful family dinner was the catalyst I needed. It hurt like hell, but it woke me up. I stopped being the background supporter and stepped fully into my own spotlight. The move to Seattle wasn't running away, it was running toward the life I deserved. If there's one lesson I carry forward, it's this. Family is important, but it should never come at the cost of your dignity, your finances, or your future. Love without respect isn't love, it's obligation. And I finally learned to choose myself first. As I raised a glass with my friends that night, I smiled at the woman reflected in the window. Strong. Free. Enough. And for the first time in my life, that felt like more than enough.